Join us on this 8.5 miles kayak from Kerne Bridge to Symonds Yat East on the Wye River on the 20th of September 2020. Watch on to learn about the amazing scenery on this route, logistics such as parking, public transport, launch and landing locations, what equipment we used, pubs along the route, and other useful information about kayaking the Wye River generally. It's about 11:15 in the morning and we're just carrying our kayaks down to the launch point at Kerne Bridge. There's a bit of a kayak jam at the launch point at Kerne Bridge because we've got to wait for some of the higher canoes to launch before us. As you can see, we're on the river now. We've just launched from Kerne Bridge. It's about 8.5 miles downstream to Symonds Yat East. We parked in the pay and display car park, which is by the launch spot at Kerne Bridge. Quite close to the car park at Kerne Bridge, there's a nice pub called the Inn on the Wye. Maybe we'll call back there later after we finish the kayak. That paddleboarder over there seems to have got disorientated and is heading back upstream. That's the caravan park there, just on the south side of Kerne Bridge. It's quite a hot day today, so I've got my legs up on top of the spray deck. It's going to be about 20 degrees according to the forecast. We got 4 members of the Kayak Crew out today for this expedition on the Wye. We've got Di, Archie, Kiva, and I'm Carlos. Di, Kiva and myself are in the green inflatable Pro Aqua kayaks, and Archie's in the red two-tager Kinetic 100 hardshell sit-on-top kayak. Archie is the first member of the Kayak Crew to get a hardshell kayak, his two-tager Kinetic. The rest of us generally use the inflatable kayaks because they're just so portable and convenient. We got our Pro Aqua inflatable kayaks from Class Olson. We've used them quite a lot now the last few years and they've been fairly dependable for us. Archie's two-tager hardshell kayak is marginally faster and better in strong crosswinds than the inflatable kayaks, but the inflatable kayaks are much more portable. You can just deflate them and put them in a backpack. We're just over 2 miles along the 8.5 miles route now, and we're coming down towards Lower Lidbrook, where there seems to be a rapidy section. Well, it's not exactly whitewater rapids, but it's certainly a bit racy here at Lower Lidbrook. I think on account of it being quite shallow, what with it being in the summer and everything. I'm just passing a swan who appears to be totally ignoring me. You can see there how shallow the river is here. The village we just passed, called Lower Lidbrook, has an interesting place called the Forge, Hammer and River Spice, which is a microbrewery combined with an Indian restaurant. That rather quaint old looking church there is St Margaret's Church at Welsh Bicknor. What a lovely building. We're almost 3 miles along the route, so we've decided to stop for our favourite part of the trip, which is the traditional cider stop and lunch break. We're back on the water, feeling quite refreshed after our cider stop. We're just coming up to 3 miles along the route, and below us there you can see the Black Bridge at Lidbrook. The Black Bridge connects Lidbrook on the east side with the Welsh Bicknor on the west bank. Apparently it was like a former railway bridge, which is now a footbridge. Here come Kiva and Di. Quite relieved that the Kiva cider doesn't seem to have kicked in yet. Otherwise he'd probably be singing as he often does on these Wye River kayaks.
Singing again.
Don't ask me what I think of you. I might not give that answer that you want me to.
It's funny when the water level is lower in the summer like this on the Wye, that the river seems to alternate between slow, deeper sections and more rapidy, shallower sections. We tend to use a website called River Levels UK to check the water levels in the Wye or other rivers that we paddle before we go. Looks like we've got some bovine intervention over there on the right hand side, the right bank. There seem to be a herd of cows that have come down and are drinking water from the river. I'm not sure what breed of cow they are. Is it Hereford? Well, we are in Herefordshire. I hope they don't decide to stampede or I could be in trouble. Cows versus kayak. I think those two guys in the Canadian canoe are doing the sensible thing and paddling past as quickly as they can. I was saying earlier about checking the water levels before you go on river kayaks. It's always worth doing, primarily to check that the water level is not dangerously high. Obviously it's the summer now and the river is fairly low, but it can get dangerously high, especially in the winter, so it's best to check before you go. I think when we checked the gauging station for Lidderbrook, which is probably the nearest one, on River Levels UK, it was about 0.7 metres, which is a little bit low for this time of the year. Most of the navigable section of the Wye is non-tidal, but it does get very tidal from Brockway downstream to Chepstow. If you're wondering about logistics for a kayak like this, then we've left a car at either end of the kayak, one at Kerne Bridge and one down at the end of the kayak in Symonds Yat East. If you only had one car and wanted to use public transport, then you could use bus 34, which goes from Whitchurch near to Symonds Yat West up to Kerne Bridge. It stops by Flansford Priory by the bridge itself. If you wanted to use bus 34 to get back to Kerne Bridge, then you'd have to land at Whitchurch, just above Symonds Yat West on the west side. Bus 34 does not go to Symonds Yat East. The other option, if you've only got one car, is to book a taxi. There are a few taxi companies in Monmouth and other parts of this area which specifically cater for canoes and kayaks. We're about 6.5 miles along the route now, with about 2 miles to go to Symonds Yat East. That bridge there is the road bridge that serves Symonds Yat East. It's 8.5 miles kayak today from Kerne Bridge down to Symonds Yat East. It's part of the Kayak Crew's undertaking to kayak every section of the Wye River from Glasbury all the way down to Chepstow. We're generally splitting the river up into sections of between about 6 miles up to about 13 miles. I've just paddled past the lovely 14th century church of St. Dupricius at Whitchurch on the right hand side, which even incorporates parts of a older 9th century church. Over on the right side there, you've got the launch spot just downriver of the river cruise boat's mooring jetty at the River Wye Caravan and Camping Park at Symonds Yat West. There's also a plane display car park there. I think there's a landing and launching fee of about £2 you've got to pay to use the jetty. It's less than a mile to go now to Symonds Yat East. Symonds Yat East is on the east bank, of course, which is over there on the left. Further downstream you can see the bottom end of Symonds Yat West on the west or right bank. Over there on the right bank we're just coming up to Ye Old Ferry Inn at Symonds Yat West. That's a lovely old pub dating back to about 1473 with a great beer garden overlooking the river, and it's got a hand-pull ferry for crossing from Symonds Yat West to Symonds Yat East. Journey's End is in sight. You can see Symonds Yat East coming up on the left there on the east bank. We're going to land at the landing stage just upstream from the Saracen's Head pub, which is another great pub overlooking the Wye with a hand-pulled ferry. I think there's a fee to land here, and the car park is just by the landing stage. What another great kayak on the amazing Wye River. If you enjoyed the video, then please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing by clicking on the left below to get updates of our trip reports and product review videos. Click on the right below to be taken to the playlist of videos of our trips along other sections of the Wye River. Don't forget to check out our website link below. Happy paddling from the Kayak Crew.